What's your question? Paul and I moved to this area from Washington, D.C. about 20 years ago, and there were some things about small town living that took a little getting used to. If you are thinking about moving here from the D.C. area or any large metro area, there's going to be some different ways of life here you can expect. I'm Jana Classy. This is my husband, Paul, and we are realtors here in the Eastern Panhandle. So there are 5 things that stand out to me. One is the slower pace. In DC, people seem to move with purpose. They've got things to do, plans to meet, careers to build, and anything that slows that down is an annoyance. Up here, there's not that sense of urgency so much. For instance, I was in line at the grocery store the other day. One person ahead of me, so I thought, great, this is going to be really fast. Turns out the checkout person knew the customer. So out comes the wallet with family photos and hugs. And the same sort of thing happens in restaurants and other places where you're waiting for something. If these sort of things happen in DC, loud complaints would be forthcoming. I have no doubt about that. Up here, there's not the rush so much. So you find yourself needing to change gears a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time being annoyed. Number 2, strangers wave at you, and sometimes they even talk to you. When we first moved up here and a passing stranger would wave, I'd ask my husband, do we know that guy? In large metro areas, people just don't do that. Up here, it's pretty common, as are statements like, have a nice day, or it's going to be a hot one today, or if you're out walking your dog, people stop and say things like, how old is he? Then a dog talk with a good boy comment. I hear it all the time when I'm out on a walk. And that also happens in DC, but more often someone walking or jogging are plugged in with a goal and time frame to get their exercise done. So that's a big difference I noticed. Number 3, job title or status doesn't seem to mean as much. It seems like when we lived in DC, what do you do for a living would often be the starting point of a conversation. People in DC and larger metro areas are there to make a career for themselves. So what people do for a living is top of mind. I just don't get the sense that people care about that so much around here. It's more about enjoying little things, smelling the roses, and I am generalizing, so there's exceptions to all this, but it's my opinion that the vibe I get, having lived in Washington, D.C. for a number of years, and for the past 30 years in this area, that people tend to connect more. Number 4, news travels fast, which is sometimes good, sometimes not so good. And this happened in Berkeley Springs several years ago when we first moved up here. At that time, we lived in Berkeley Springs, out in the country. So I brought the neighbor down the road, an older gentleman, native of West Virginia, some beans and rice, trying to be neighborly. They were black beans, which he evidently wasn't familiar with. So he thought they were burned and told us that burnt beans will kill you. Next day, I was in a local store, and when the clerk saw my identification, she said, "Are you the one that brought Melvin those burnt beans?" So when just about everybody knows each other, news travels fast. Here's another example. I was at the grocer's up there, And as often happens, the clerk asked me how I was enjoying this nice Sunday. I told her I had friends from DC staying at a cabin they rented, and she said, "Are they the ones that are looking for their cat?" So I asked them about it when I stopped by, and yes, they said they had lost the cat. They had found it, and that they had mentioned it when they were at the same grocer's earlier. They thought it was funny how that small piece of news was repeated. And that aspect of small town life is not so much the case in Martinsburg these days. But if you move to a small community out in the country, that is something to expect. Number 5, there's lots fewer varieties of ethnic foods here. And I'm going to say it's gotten lots better. We have 2 Thai restaurants here in Martinsburg that are really good. But there's just lots more variety in DC, like those authentic gyros from Greek food stands and restaurants. I really miss that. And the Ethiopian and other ethnic restaurants in Adams Morgan in DC were wonderful. Or the fantastic Indian restaurants. We have an Indian restaurant here, and it's pretty good, but it's not like what you find in downtown DC. But it's a short drive to the DC area to take care of that. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Paul and I do love living here. We really enjoy the slower pace and the affordability. If you are thinking of moving here, we have a relocation guide you can download. It's on our website. The address is meetmeinthepanhandle.com/relocation. There's another video you might like. It's called Our Towns, and it's on our YouTube channel. So just click on that and find out a little bit more details about the small towns in this area. Okay, thanks for tuning in. I will see you next week. Have a great week.